Phil Collins' former bandmates have a lot to say about him. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. This is the man who, again, it was so shocking when I found out he played the drums on In the Air Tonight. I was so, people are like, yeah, he does it all. It just tripped me out. I know he was a singer, but when I seen that one video for the first time and he walked up that ramp and do, I was like, oh, all right, we're going to check this out. Appreciate all the love and support with you guys coming over. We ain't going to waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
In the 1980s, Phil Collins earned millions of fans by churning out a string of top 40 hits, but to those who worked with him, Collins could be overly demanding and difficult. Even the biggest stars start somewhere, and for Phil Collins, that was in a band called The Real Thing. Also in the band was his future wife, Andrea Bertarelli. When Collins spoke with The Guardian in 2016, he admitted that when she left him, it kick-started the musical creativity that resulted in some of his most famous songs. Collins told the outlet, "People used to say to me, 'Don't you feel embarrassed showing your dirty laundry?' And really, I didn't, because it was the only way I knew how to write songs." Bertarelli, however, has been historically less thrilled with the arrangement. That said, things came to a head around the release of Collins' 2016 memoir, Not Dead Yet. She ultimately sued Collins over claims that were made about their relationship in the book.
Damn.
In an interview with the Irish Independent, Bertarelli said this about her marriage to the singer: "I have variously been portrayed as a homewrecker, a gold digger, and a bad mother. I wish to make clear I divorced Phil Collins on the grounds of his adultery. The grounds for divorce were not contested." When Peter Gabriel left Genesis, Phil Collins took over. Their relationship is at the center of one of the long-standing debates in music history, with some insisting that there was some bad blood there. There isn't. When Genesis went on their farewell tour, Gabriel was there. He told Mojo, "Phil wasn't in as great a shape as he used to be, but they did a great job. Me going was a rite of passage, really. I'd been part of the creation of Genesis, so I wanted to be there at the end." In a conversation with the Daily Mail, Gabriel also spoke a bit about Collins, telling the outlet, "He was the workaholic's workaholic." Gabriel also confirmed during the interview that the end of his time in Genesis didn't come because of any real dislike. Instead, he just sort of wanted to go his own way.
Clearly it was good for them because it sort of brought Phil out front and gave everyone a bit more space.
Chester Thompson was first recruited to join Genesis as a touring drummer in 1977 and later stayed with Collins when he went solo. It wasn't easy going though, and when Rolling Stone interviewed him in 2021, he and Collins hadn't spoken in years. Thompson said he never doubted that he was anything but Collins' backup drummer and went on to play his final show with the singer in 2010. Thompson recalled the events of that show to Rolling Stone, telling the outlet, "He got pretty frustrated with me and literally cussed me out in front of everybody. He told me that I sounded like crap and all that.
Damn.
The vibe just changed. It was different." Thompson added that although he'd moved on, it kicked off years of silence. When Rolling Stone spoke with Bill,
It's crazy because, like, when you get at a certain level of talent and you work really hard, like, you hear things differently. Like, you want it to sound the way you want it to sound, and when it doesn't, it's so noticeable. And they get so frustrated because they're like, "Come on, man." When he said that, it just reminded me of Michael Jordan that in The Last Dance, how he cussing out his teammates. Doing this right here. Hey, boy.
Bruford about his time with Genesis, he acknowledged that Phil Collins would often become irritated with his tendency to improvise while performing.
I didn't have much emotional involvement with the music. I was accustomed to being very involved in the mechanics of the music.
In Genesis, chapter and verse, Bruford recalled being told that he needed to sound just like Collins did in the studio, so it caused a bit of a rift. Still, when he spoke with Rock History Music about his brief time with the band, he had nothing but good things to say about Collins. Bruford said, Phil is a tremendously rhythmic guy. Bruford went on to say that he was sad about the way things had shaped up for Collins.
I'm disappointed now that he seems to be an unhappy guy. Some of that's physical. I think he has a lot of physical problems.
Still, Bruford also lauded Collins for something that not all musicians can boast, and it went back to those emotionally vulnerable songs. He told Rock History Music, "I can't help but admire such an amazingly direct connection between performer and audience. I think it's fantastic." If there's anyone who's faced with a unique kind of pressure when they sat down to play alongside Phil Collins, it's Nick Collins. They are, after all, father and son. Nick was just 15 years old when he first took the stage alongside his father, and when Rolling Stone asked him what it was like, he explained, "All his drummers have looked up to different drummers, but I've looked up to him, so it helps with the songs since I'm doing the same thing."
But he's fantastic. So he's going to be my drummer, yeah.
In another Rolling
That's
Stone
dope.
interview from 2022, Nick was asked what it was like to play drums at Genesis's last show ever. The then 20-year-old gave the sort of insight into Phil's life that only a son could bring. He said his father had a difficult time over the fact that he was physically unable to play the drums on stage. But as Nick also noted, the sting was lessened by the reality that it was his son taking his place. Nick told Rolling Stone, "I also do think that my dad is probably excited about the next step in his life. Music has given him so much, but he's also given so much to it. I think for him to be able to take a step back and not have that pressure that he's had for decades, I think is going to be nice for him." When Rolling Stone sat down to do a career retrospective with guitarist Daryl Stuermer, they mentioned a hilarious anecdote where he admitted to being less than impressed with Peter Gabriel after seeing him perform for the first time. But after joining a Phil Collins-led Genesis, Stuermer would become a key part of performances on stage and in the studio, both with Genesis and alongside Collins for his solo projects. However, adapting to the band's way of doing things was difficult, primarily because Collins demanded that things sound the same on stage as they did in the studio.
Yes.
Stuermer was never officially a member of Genesis,
That's what I
but he
was
doesn't
saying.
seem to have any bitter feelings about that. He told Rolling Stone, "My favorite line that Phil said about me in an interview was, 'Daryl is a permanent, part-time, temporary member.' I love that. I've actually used that line myself at times." However, Stuermer has had nothing but good things to say about working with Collins. When he was asked about all the times Collins retired only to come back for one more tour, Stuermer said it never bothered him. He told Rolling Stone, "I'm savoring it every time that we play." There's no shortage of horror stories about bands breaking up in high-profile ways, but that wasn't the case with Genesis. Even though Phil Collins launched his solo career and Mike Rutherford did his thing with Mike and the Mechanics, Rutherford still had a lot of fun just hanging out with Collins in 2017. That's when his group was opening for Collins. Rutherford told Ultimate Classic Rock, "The focus is on him doing his thing, but you never know. We'll see. It's certainly great to see Phil out doing stuff. I think it's going to be very good for him. He's too strong of a talent to not be doing something in the world.
Yeah,
I just
something.
know I'm going to have good fun hanging out with him."
I said you're such a legend.
No, I know. I just wanted to hear it again.
In a 2021 conversation with Rock and Roll Garage, longtime Genesis guitarist Steve Hackett shared his interesting perspective on the band's evolution. In the interview, he described the transition between Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins. Gabriel, he said, was a David Bowie-esque actor, performing for an audience in a very visual way. Collins, however, was very different. Hackett told the outlet, "He was very, very good. I think to be able to hold the audience in the palm of his hand, it was something that Phil had because he had the common touch." When Hackett sat down for a chat with Ultimate Classic Rock, he was asked about something that Collins alleged in his memoir. Collins wrote that the guitarist hadn't been straightforward with him when he was getting ready to leave the band. Hackett admitted to this, telling the outlet, "I loved Phil and I didn't want him to talk me out of it because I suspect that he and I would have continued working on for many years to come." John Bonham's 1980 death saw Led Zeppelin going on hiatus, and it wasn't until 1985 that they returned to the stage to perform a 20-minute set for Live Aid. It was an honorable enough return, but it didn't exactly go over well with the public. As Far Out explains, they needed a drummer and chose Phil Collins, but it wasn't that easy of a transition for him. Collins had never even rehearsed with the band, but in a short amount of time, he found himself playing a London show, then hopping on a jet, traveling across the Atlantic and joining them for their Philadelphia show the same day.
Yo.
If it sounds absolutely grueling, it was. And Collins would later say that he didn't even know he was going to be performing with Led Zeppelin that night. His prep consisted of listening to Stairway to Heaven on the flight, and what Page has said about him in the aftermath hasn't been kind. At the time, he condemned Collins to MTV. Page didn't even mention him by name when he said, "One drummer was halfway across the Atlantic and didn't know the stuff."
I just came here to play the drums, and I had a good time.
When Tony Banks, one of the founding members of
That's
Genesis,
crazy, man.
sat down with Vulture in 2023, he said there were a few things he wished Phil Collins had done differently, specifically In the Air Tonight. That was, of course, a massive hit for Collins, and according to Banks, Collins always claimed that he'd originally played it and pitched it as a Genesis song. However, Banks said that wasn't the case, revealing to Vulture, "If Genesis had done it, I'd have probably screwed it up. That's one of my favorite songs of his, and always has been."
To me, it's about the song.
He also confirmed that yes, fans had definitely seen the end of Genesis, but it wasn't arguments or conflict that had put an end to the whole thing. Banks told Vulture, "I don't think there's anything else left. The well is dry. We can't tour anymore because of Phil's state, so that's the end of that." By the time Marilyn Martin joined Phil Collins for the hit Separate Lives, she'd already been featured on albums with acts like
I forgot exactly what happened with Phil Collins, because I see him in some of these pictures. He's in a chair and he's using the cane. I honestly forgot. If you guys can comment below what was his health problem. I honestly forgot.
Joe Walsh and Stevie Nicks. In 2013, she was interviewed for the blog Kicking It Old School and said that she had nothing but fond memories of the song. Martin told the outlet, "Phil is perfection. I was around him for a long period of time when we filmed the video, and he was very kind and extremely focused. When I began work on my album, he sent me a cassette of some songs that he thought I might like to record. So thoughtful." In 2017, Leland Sklar was interviewed by the German Genesis fan club, and by that time, he had already been touring and performing with Collins for about 3 decades. It hadn't always been easy, though, and he acknowledged the fact that there were about 10 years that he had little to no contact with Collins. However, there was no falling out. In fact, once Collins came out with his 2016 memoir, Sklar realized what his friend had been struggling with. He told the outlet, "It used to be with Phil, like if you sent him an email, you would get a response within a few minutes. And now, you could send him emails and you might not get a response for 6 months, so he became very private and introverted." Sklar then added that although his level of contact with Collins was infrequent during this period, he still made it a point to reach out to him. Sklar told the outlet, "I was writing to him on a pretty regular basis, just saying that I don't care if we ever play music again. I just care about you as a friend, and I hope you're okay."
Yeah, man. When you reach, like I said, a certain level, and you know what you want things to sound like, basically like almost like you're a perfectionist. It's very difficult to like go down a level when you feel like, when you're playing a song over and over, we should have this by now. Everybody's going to like have feuds with each other when it's almost like your competitive spirit gets in there, and some people may not understand it because it's a feeling. It's like when you're at that level and you expect everybody to like be at that same level. Always try to compare it to basketball because like that's one of the best comparisons I can think. Kobe Bryant said it, he needed his teammates to get on his level or get out the damn way. It's just, music can be very, very tricky when it's like a band, when there's multiple guys. Because someone is always going to outshine someone. It all has to do, like, the egos, the personalities may clash just because you may have some people who may just be kind of quiet. Some people, even though they're famous, they don't like all the limelight. They don't like being in the light. You know, they rather be in the back just doing their thing because that's how they started. But they hold such a great talent that, you know, when it's time to share with the world, sometimes being consistent in that can be very overwhelming just because you got so many people like coming at you from you just don't want to lose the passion for it. You want to be doing it for all the right reasons. But I never knew that it was so much stuff going on behind the scenes, man. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys commented down below. Let me know what was wrong because I totally have forgot. But all right, peace out.